My name is Darrin Nelson. I'm actually a serial entrepreneur. I've been very fortunate to be part of building and selling 5 tech companies. The first 3 of which were professional services consultancies, and the last 2 were value-added resellers. I actually started my career in the IBM mainframe operating system development labs, Myers Corners Labs, and wrote MVS ESA version 4. It's frightening to think that some of my code may still be out there running somewhere. But before I get started, I wanted to tell you a quick story. I'm married to a lovely Sicilian woman, first generation Sicilian American. And for those of you not familiar with Sicilians, they're very warm and caring, compassionate individuals, unless you cross them. If you cross them, you can rest assured that there will be revenge, and they never forget. So as that is a stage set, my wife and I were traveling out to San Diego to visit our adult children, and we had a connecting flight in Chicago O'Hare. We had a very short connection, so we were running through, and we wanted to grab some food. So my wife grabbed a granola bar and a magazine. We got on our plane. It turned out that the row we were in, the middle seat was empty, and there was an adjacent aisle to us. So there was a guy sitting on the aisle. My wife took, a guy sitting on the window. My wife took the aisle, and there was an empty chair in the middle, and then I took the adjacent one. She sat down. She put her magazine and her granola bar on the center seat. And we all had our headphones on, watching movies. I'm sitting in the aisle, and just after takeoff, dude reaches over, grabs a granola bar, opens it, takes a bite out of it, puts it back down. My wife's looking at him like, are you kidding me? She couldn't believe her eyes. 2 minutes later, guy reaches back down, grabs a granola bar, takes a bite, and she's beside herself. She can't believe that someone is eating her granola bar, and she's starving. You don't get an Italian hungry or Sicilian hungry. She was hungry, someone's eating her food. So we land, we're hustling through San Diego airport. She's telling me this story, and I'm like, oh my gosh. All of a sudden, she bolts away from me, and the dude that ate her bar just bought a bagel from a bagel shop. So she walks up, grabs the bagel out of his hand, takes a bite, hands it back to her, and continues on her way. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what I just saw. So we're sitting in the back of the Uber, and she's kind of smiling because now the world of morality is back on its axis, and she sought revenge, and she got revenge. She's kind of smiling. Phone rings. My wife's phone rings. She opens her bag. It's our daughter. As she reaches in to grab the phone, she grabbed her granola bar. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to apologize in advance. I have about 50 minutes of content that I'm going to take you through in 25. So I'm going to move very, very quickly. My contact information is on that QR code there. You can either hit me up on LinkedIn or take a picture of that QR code, or come see me at the IBM booth between 11 and 11:30 after this call, after this presentation. I'd be happy to share with you or chat with you. Well, let's get started. Essentially, this presentation is going to be divided into 3 particular areas. First, I'm going to talk about some of the best practices that I've learned in building the 5 companies I have and the dozens of different practices that I've built. Regardless of what practices you're building or what business you are in, I'm going to share with you some of the patterns of success that I have seen. And then I'm going to shift gears and get specific to the IBM AI portfolio and talk about some of the differentiators in the IBM Watson X portfolio and how you can build businesses. And then finally, I'm going to finish with some resources that we have available to you so you can test drive the technology or become part of our partner program and so forth. But before I get started, I want to make sure I understand who I'm talking to. How many people in the room are consultancies? Okay. How many are managed service providers? Value-added resellers? End users that just have an interest in AI? Okay, wow, we have quite a diverse set here. Well, let's rock and roll. So I've built practices around IBM Security, QRadar, Identity and Access Management, TimTamFim, Cognos, Data, Business Intelligence, Splunk, Microsoft, AWS, Cisco Security, dozens and dozens of practices. These are a handful of some of the accelerated growth keys to success that I've seen. Change agents. You got to put change agents in place. Oftentimes what we do when we're building a new practice or launching a new practice in our business, we ask someone that's already working for the company and has a responsibility to part-time take on the responsibility of this new initiative that we're trying to launch or build this new practice. I will tell you, my experience has been is if you have a part-timer doing part-time activity, you can expect part-time results. You need to make sure that you've got a change agent or a set of change agents in place that are foaming in the mouth and they don't eat unless this new initiative is successful. Second, you got to make sure you've got a motivating incentive structures for all of those individuals that are relevant to this new practice. Whether it's these change agents or sales reps that you have, leadership, even your existing sales reps. If you hired new sales reps or overlay specialists to sell these new practices, don't forget about your existing sales reps. Your existing sales reps have relationships with your customer base. If they're not incentivized for the success of this new practice, they're going to hold their customer base hostage. They have no motivation to bring in your sales specialists or drive these new initiatives. Training enablement. You got to make sure that you enable your sellers and your pre-sales engineers and your engineers if you're going to do implementation. Duh, everybody knows that. Pipeline. Pipeline ignition is an imperative. You have to be very, very intentional about driving pipeline ignition, ranging from prospecting, demand generation, deal progression. Pipeline doesn't just happen. Hope is not a strategy for pipeline. You need to invest in building pipeline. If you do not, you will be disappointed. You've got to make sure that you're investing in your demand generation and your pipeline ignition. And finally, you've got to make sure that there is commitment from the top of your organization. If you're investing in these other areas or these new initiatives, it is at the expense of something else. If your leadership is not committed to the sacrifice that's required, everything else I just talked about is irrelevant. Okay? So let's shift gears. Let's talk about hotspots that we're seeing in the industry these days. So there's no question that Gen AI and artificial intelligence, there's a lot going on in that space, right? Tons and tons of money being spent. There are studies saying that there's $4 trillion of global economic benefit and profit coming from AI over the next few years. 80% of businesses will implement Gen AI in the next 3 years. It's moving at a very, very rapid pace. I will tell you, I can't see everybody, but I'm probably the oldest guy in the room, one of the oldest guys in the room. I've seen some major inflection points in our industry, ranging from client-server computing to the internet, to cloud computing, cybersecurity. AI is one of those inflection points in our industry where there's going to be entire market segments built around this, and AI will not only become part of every business, it'll become part of our culture, of our society. This is a major inflection point. Observability and FinOps. With all the workloads being moved to hybrid cloud or public cloud architectures, this is a frightening metric. There's a $700 billion cloud spend annually happening, and it's a crazy CAGR that's continued to grow. Do you realize that 44% of our CFOs out there have no visibility or no idea how much is being consumed? Studies are showing that 30% of that cloud spend is underconsumed or not consumed at all. That is a crazy amount of waste. If we do not put some discipline in FinOps and observability, the amount of money that we can take and save from that and invest in other parts of our business is just mind-boggling. If we move to the upper right, cybersecurity. In all the years that I've been working in this industry, there are very few times where I've seen persistent unbudgeted buys. Cybersecurity is one of those. Any CISO could walk into a boardroom tomorrow and go, oh my gosh, if we don't plug this hole, your faces are going to end up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal for all the wrong reasons tomorrow. They typically find money to invest in the cybersecurity exposures that they have. Cybersecurity, for as long as I can imagine, will persist to be a hotspot in the market. Workload, down the bottom right, workload and data transformation and modernization, clearly that's happening in spades. And then sustainability. We are seeing a shift in the interest around sustainability, and it's not just an afterthought or a cost center. There's actually, Mother Earth, there's a limited number of resources that we have available to us, and we have to be intentional about taking care of that. And we're seeing actual C-suites having major benchmarks and metrics around the success of their business and not just being cost center around sustainability. One could argue there's other hotspots in the industry. It's probably tough to debate that there's not a lot of spend happening in these 5 areas. Well, the interesting thing is these happen to be the areas where IBM has invested, either through acquisition or through organic development. And these are the products that we have that solve for each of those solution areas. Now, what I did is I'm not giving you here the current IBM corporate pitch where we talk about our 4 platforms. Yes, each of these are part of our four platforms. Our four platforms are data, automation, hybrid cloud, transaction processing. Watson X obviously is part of our data portfolio. Apptio, Instana, Invisi, Maximo, Guardium, Verify is all part of our automation portfolio. And then the cloud packs actually are across data and our automation. So why is that platform part interesting? What IBM has done is made sure that each of these products integrate with each other in the platform. So as you ingest these key areas and you want to expand your business, IBM makes it really, really easy for you to do so. Okay, let's move on. About 2.5, 3 years ago, IBM announced a strategic partnership with AWS. Now, if 4 or 5 years ago you came to me and said that Bezos and Krishna were going to play nice together, I would have said, you're nuts. There's no way those two are going to come together and play nice together. A strategic collaboration agreement was signed, which actually enables a significant portion of the IBM portfolio to be sold and consumed on the AWS platform, sold through the marketplace, consumed on AWS. We also have portions of our portfolio that are now also available on Azure in the Microsoft world. Why is this important? Well, the nice thing about it is you probably have customers out there, those either are VARs or SIs, consultancies, MSPs, that have these things called EDPs. EDPs are basically a committed spend that customers have with AWS. And if they don't hit those EDP objectives, they actually pay more for each of their AWS resources. So their procurement is wired to drive as much transactions as they can through those EDPs. You can actually now sell and consume IBM products through the AWS marketplace and retire customer EDP. They're very happy about that. AWS sellers get paid on these transactions. IBM sellers get paid on these transactions. And if you're a VAR or an SI interested in margin around these transactions, you actually earn 25 points of margin on those transactions. Everybody wins. Interesting relationship, right? Now let's talk about how do you engage with IBM. So traditionally, everybody, when IBM built our channel business, it was fundamentally around a resell business. And in that scenario, you as a value-added reseller or a consultancy, you could actually resell IBM technology to your end customers. And you could optionally do the professional and managed services around that. In that particular scenario, the one on the left there, essentially, you have the opportunity to earn 40 points of margin on that transaction. IBM owns the responsibility for doing level 1 support. So if the customer has a problem with the technology, they call IBM support. And the customer actually owns the entitlement to the assets, the technology licensing. If we move to the right, the build motion. In a build motion, essentially what that means is you're embedding IBM technology in your offering. So for example, Adobe, SAP, they're embedding our Watson X in their offering. They're not necessarily telling everybody that Watson X is powering a major portion of their AI experience, but what they've done is they've license that technology from us. No need for them to build an enterprise-class AI platform because we have one. They embed it in, and it does some really cool stuff for them. In that scenario, those OEMs or ISVs that are embedding our technology, they own the software entitlements. They own the responsibility of level 1 support because ultimately it's their product. And we've got thousands, tens of thousands of ISVs, OEMs, or entities that are licensing our technology that way. Move over to the right, managed services providers. Those of you that have an interest in providing managed services around IBM technology, we now have a program dedicated to that. That enables you to provide the outcomes or the experience to your end customers and license our technology that's much more conducive to an MSP experience. Things like metering, multi-tenancy, those things that are very, very important to an MSP experience. And then finally, service. For those of you entities that just have an interest in signing SOWs and doing professional services, we do have a service route as well, where essentially you have access to training and other incentives that enable you to be very, very effective in doing the implementation or prescribing of IBM technology to the outcomes you're looking for. All right. So let's talk about what we've learned so far. So now I'm going to get specifically into the Watson X and AI portion. We're doing tens of thousands of implementations of Watson X around the world with a number of different customers. What I thought would be helpful is to provide with you some perspective as some of the learnings we have. First of all, we're seeing that we're finding better experiences and better outcomes for those customers or those entities that are using the right model for the right problem. Entities that were trying to boil the ocean and use these massive models to solve for every particular scenario, it's very, very inefficient, very, very costly, very, very inefficient. Multi-hybrid cloud. It's very uncommon for businesses today to be devoted to either exclusively on-prem or exclusively Azure or exclusively AWS or exclusively Google. For whatever reason, whether they're diversifying their liability or certain applications run better in multiple environments or different environments, they are hybrid cloud or multi-cloud committed. Governance and security. As powerful as AI is, if we don't take good care of it, ethical and trustworthy AI, it's an imperative. It's an imperative because bad things will happen at really, really fast pace. IBM actually has an entire component built around AI governance. It's called watsonx.gov. Scale for value. You know, I'll age myself again. I remember when Lotus Notes version 4 came out. Everybody was trying to solve every single problem with Lotus Notes. Not every platform or every solution is ideal for solving every single different problem. Make sure you pick a use case that makes sense to solve for with AI. Make sure you model what your expectations are and are setting everybody's expectations correctly. If you roll into this thinking AI is going to solve every problem for you, you will likely be disappointed. Finally, data matters. It's a function. AI doesn't work without good quality, good, clean, and trusted data. Let's talk about some of the use cases that we're seeing a tremendous amount of activity and success in. Digital labor, we're seeing significant opportunity there, customer service, as well as app modernization. In the digital labor space, I'll give you a perfect example. We were client zero for our own Watson X that we used in our HR environment. When I started 2.5 years ago, when I came back to IBM to help modernize the ecosystem, I sold my last company. I was a major shareholder of Sirius Computer Solutions. I don't know if you all have heard of that. When we sold the CDW, I was asked to come back to IBM and help modernize the ecosystem. I had, as a second-line manager, I came in as a director, I had an HR partner that handled everything for me around hiring, firing, raises, all the HR-type stuff. 6 months later, they said, you no longer have an HR partner. You have Ask HR, which is a Watson X-powered chatbot experience. I was like, whoa. We now do 95% of all of our HR-related needs all through a Watson X digital assistant experience, essentially. We were able to cut our expenses, our HR expenses for our 260,000 employee company, 40%. 40% savings in our HR by automating that. Now, that's just us. So I wanted to drill down a little further. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I only have about 9 minutes left. These are some very specific use cases and very specific outcome verticals. The importance of this chart is if you look at the lower bar, we've built connectors for these major CRM, ERP, application platforms. This enables you to easily leverage Watson X as a wrapper to your existing business systems and drive significant efficiencies into your businesses. So, let's talk about some of the differentiation. For those of you that may be old enough, right, we were pretty proud that we won Jeopardy with Watson X over a decade or so ago. But frankly, I'm going to say this, we didn't do a very good job after that. Right? I mean, we didn't do a very good job of bringing Watson X to the market and making it consumable. And it was about 2 years ago where we really got intentional about saying, you know what? We know ChatGPT has democratized Gen AI around end user and consumer efficiency. I knew it was crazy because my 83-year-old mom was asking me questions about AI, which was like bizarre. But what IBM has done is said, you know what? That's not what we're going to be. We're going to focus on the enterprise. We're going to solve for business outcomes. That's what we're focused on. That's what we're driving. That's what IBM has really, really done a nice job with, making AI consumable, trustworthy, so much so that IBM will actually indemnify the users of our technology around AI. There's not many AI providers in the industry that will do that. So, what are some of the differentiators that we talk about? Not just that we're enterprise focused and not necessarily focused on end user productivity. Trusted. As you can see here, you can see the trust and transparency is how we relate in the lower left. Performant. You can see that we're actually faster than some of the other major models. And then on the right, you can actually see that we're far more cost effective. There is some backup data that I'll provide here, but I also want to bring to your attention something called Instruct Lab. Instruct Lab enables you to take models, any of these open source models or Granite models or whatever models you're going to use, and you can actually inject some of your own business rules and data into those models. So you essentially can personalize that AI experience with your domain expertise, your business expertise. And it's not coding. It's actually a platform that enables you to personalize and customize your models to provide an even more effective and more relevant AI experience for your businesses. So I mentioned that there's some data that shows the performance scores. You can see here, based on various different use cases, how well Watson X has performed against those other models. Here you can actually see cost, where we're way, way more efficient than some of the more popular models. Here you can actually see over time what your costs accumulate to be when you use the other models versus the IBM models and Instruct Lab. We're talking real dollars here, real dollars in savings. Now, I wanted to make sure, again, I know you're not going to be able to consume all this, and I'm not going to talk through all these use cases, but for those that have a strong interest, hit me up on LinkedIn, send me an email, and we'll get you this deck so you have access to these various use cases. But I wanted you to see in these various verticals, customer-facing functions and experiences, HR, IT operations, and core business operations, and you can see each of these use cases. We actually have case studies around most of these. If you hit our website and search on these, you'll actually see a number of my really, really good partners have dozens and dozens of case studies out here. Here's an opportunity for you. For those of you that say, okay, Darrin, sounds cool, show me the money. I want to see this, I want to test drive it. If you actually go to our digital self-service co-create experience, we have a free environment for you to actually test drive each of these use cases: content generation, summarization, RAG, OCR, code generation, QA, insight extraction, classification, named entity recognition. You can log in and get access to the platform and try this stuff out. You can also try other aspects of Watson X. You can you can build your own chatbots. You actually could go in and in under 15 minutes have your own chatbot built for you to test drive yourself. And then over on the right, you can see some access to some other application experience that you have here. So don't believe me. Go try it yourself. Or talk to your IBM partner or your IBM seller. Have them help you with this. But if you're self-service individuals, I wanted to provide you content so you can go try it yourself. Oops, let me go back. For those of you that are providing technology-served outcomes, if you're a consultancy or a managed service provider, if you're a value-added reseller, systems integrator, I wanted you to see this. Arvind is our CEO, and I can tell you, I grew up in the IBM ecosystem, 20-something years building companies in that ecosystem. I can tell you, when I first started my business, it was like pulling teeth. IBM was a direct sales organization, and the channel was, frankly, an afterthought. We were gravy. There has been a significant evolution over the years, and especially since Arvind has taken the helm. Arvind's investing $1 billion in our ecosystem. $1 billion. His expectation and his marching orders, and I'll tell you, when I was at Sirius running our software and services business here, the best year IBM ever had in their participation rates, which means what % of their business was fulfilled through a partner versus direct, the best year was 18%. And IBM, celebrating that. What Arvind is saying is, no. We want more than 50% of our business to come through the channel. That is a major transformation for the IBM company. And we're seeing a tremendous amount of success. The amount of EBITDA I was able to contribute, profit and EBITDA I was able to contribute to the Sirius company with the business I built is mind-boggling. And it frankly helped our valuation significantly with the amount of profit we generated from that business. So what's the journey you take? This just gives you an example of the journey that you might take, and a specific example of one of my partners, actually, where you join our Partner Plus, you create the solutions that you're trying to bring to market, you promote them, and then we can help co-sell, or we can provide some co-marketing and MDF dollars. Typical journey with other ISVs, but we have so much resource devoted to your success here. I encourage you to take a look if you haven't already. So now, in my last minute, I'm going to give you an opportunity to say, okay, where do you start? Partner Plus is the name of our ecosystem program. You can join here and gain access to all the training and artifacts that our IBMers do for free. You want to get schooled up? You can access it here. If you want to grow your technical skills, there's some hands-on training around Watson X. There's some boot camps. There's some user-focused web content. You can go here. If you want to do some additional education, these three areas, Partner Plus Learning Hub, TechZone, and Seismic, are three platforms or places you can go consume and have access to that content. If you want to know, hey, I'd like to really connect with people in my geography and understand more about what it means to be a partner or how I can get engaged with IBM sellers. These 4 individuals are ecosystem leaders in each of the 4 regions of the US. Some of them are here today. Reach out to them. Yeah, Piper's there. There's Piper. And then finally, This is some additional Partner Plus resources that you can gain access to make sure you get the full content and full information that you were looking for. I can't believe I did it. I just got down to 0. I whacked you through 50 minutes of content in 20 minutes. I thank you for your time. I'm sincere about the opportunity. For those of you that are end users and are looking for ways to use AI or Watson X to drive your businesses, you don't have to be a partner. I encourage you to take a look. It is an extraordinary time to be with IBM. Take a look at our stock price. It's at almost an all-time high. It's just a really, really great time. So thank you for your time. If you have questions for me, I'll be at our IBM booth on the floor, the tech floor today from 11 to 11:30. Hit me up on LinkedIn or send me an email. Thank you so much. Have a great conference.